Alright, so Tesla just had their WeRobot event, and it should come to no surprise that there were mixed feelings about it. Personally, I loved it. Not only did it look really fun, but some of the things they unveiled were incredible. Today I'm going to go into how we're entering an era of automation and what role Tesla is going to play in all of this. So, like I said, we're quickly entering an era where the majority of menial work and just jobs in general are going to be automated. Now, there are huge implications for this, so I want to cover those in this video, as well as just go over how Tesla's kind of event showcases, basically it just gives us a glimpse into the future and what all of this could kind of look like at some point in time. It's only a little, only a little snippet because there's so many factors that come into play, but I want to cover how automation in general is going to be playing quite a vital part in just deciding how our society functions as a whole. So let's get into it. Now, humans excel at creating solutions to our existing problems. We're really good at finding problems. Like a lot of us are really good at finding problems, but then the solutions are what we then create, right? We create these solutions in the form of technology. Technology isn't just anything electrical. Technology is anything we've designed with the scientific knowledge that we've gained. So this technology propels us into a different kind of era, right? And each generation goes through this. Every single generation goes through this. To free up our time, we invent things that automate the process. At one point, tractors were invented so that we can make farming much more efficient. Now, today we still use tractors, and I'm sure the technology behind them is developing, and there's going to be even more automation in farm-related activities. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But as well as this, we had, lifts. Once upon a time, we had lift operators. Now we just have automatic lifts because what's the point in someone standing there operating a lift all day, right? When we can just automate it. We automate the things that don't need people to be there. And to be honest, what we don't realize in today's society is that most jobs that we do today, you don't need someone there. We just don't have any better solution. So then we put people in that position because people are tailored or people specialize in doing those kind of things, right? We are really good at adapting and just figuring out solutions, like I said. And this is how we get into the society we live in today, where jobs are the standard. Now we're seeing exponential growth in a lot of different sectors, which is just an incredible thing to see because I don't think people quite understand how quickly it's not just AI that's improving, right? AI is probably the biggest invention ever, and I don't even say that lightly. Like AI is one of the biggest things we've ever created. But as well as this, there's just in every single industry, there's so much growth happening, and it's hard to keep track of it, honestly. Even just focusing on AI, right? It's hard to keep track of everything that's happening in AI. But in every single industry, there's just something big happening. I've talked to many people about this, and there's mixed opinions. The majority of people just seem to have a negative opinion on automation in general. As with any generation, though, you see, if you go back in time, when horses were the standard form of transport, and then we started implementing cars originally, that was shunned. People weren't looking forward to that. There are so many problems people had with cars being invented that they thought it just either wouldn't work. They were like, this isn't going to be sustainable. This won't work. It's not a good solution. And yet, fast forward to today, and cars are everywhere. They've replaced all horses. I'm sure some people are very enthusiastic about horses the same way people are enthusiastic about internal combustion engine cars today. And then when Tesla originally came out, there were a lot of naysayers going into how they're not going to work. They're not going to be able to break into this. And yet here we are today with EVs not only being feasible, but they're also phasing out internal combustion engine vehicles completely. Like they're not going to be produced, I think, after 2035. Like that's incredible. From people, basically saying it's never going to work. And this is only like over a decade ago, right? From people saying it's never going to work to then it being the only thing we're going to be manufacturing very soon is incredible. So I want to go into that as well. So Tesla's vision for the future. Tesla has always had a focus on making a sustainable future. We have EVs, we have solar energy, and we have energy storage. This creates for a much more sustainable ecosystem than what we currently have today. What we currently have is burning fossil fuels so that we can fuel the cars that, a lot of the energy that we convert isn't even going to running the car. It's not moving the car. A lot of it is just going into, well, noise. You got heat. There's so many different things where the energy we're burning from these fossil fuels isn't actually being used properly, Whereas EVs are a lot more efficient, much more efficient at converting that energy into actual kinetic energy, where it moves the vehicle. And like I said, Electric vehicles run on renewable energy sources, meaning they don't have to rely on these unsustainable, unrenewable energy sources that we currently have, such as fossil fuels and just, like coal, all these things that, oil, all these things that we've been relying on for so long. They've been polluting the atmosphere, and they've just been harmful, even to us. You can see the effect it's going to have if we were to sustain this kind of thing, not only on the planet, but on us as a species. There's no way this is a sustainable way of living. So this is why we need electric vehicles, because they lead us into a more economically sustainable and environmentally sustainable future. Now, self-driving frees up a lot of our time. The average person drives for 10 hours a week. Tesla has been focusing heavily on self-driving. Very, very early on, they promised self-driving. And of course, Elon Musk would always promise it, yeah, it's going to be here next year or next year or next year. And he's usually off in his predictions, right? But people focus too heavily on that. They focus way too heavily on all these predictions that he gets wrong, rather than the fact that he's actually delivering, right? If you look at self-driving today, hundreds and hundreds of miles can be driven without intervention. Now, this is crazy. People don't even acknowledge this as a thing, right? All they see is like, oh yeah, but you still need to be aware that you still need to be conscious. You still need to be paying attention to the roads. Obviously, it's supervised self-driving at the moment. You're going to need to pay attention, but it's a matter of fact that people drive for hundreds and hundreds of miles without intervention. This is today. Imagine where this will be in a few years' time. It's absolutely incredible, the progress we've made and the progress we're going to make in the future with this technology. So not only will self-driving free up our time, but the humanoid robots they're working on will also free up our time. Again, automation frees up time. So these humanoid robots, we're taking all of the time-consuming tasks that we do, the cooking, the cleaning, the maintenance of our house in general. They're going to do all of this, and it's going to take, think about how much time, right? So you come home from a long day at work. First of all, work. That's going to be gone, right? So you can't, but let's assume we're still working, and these are just, at-home humanoid robots, right? So you come home from a long day at work. Currently, what we do is we cook, and then we have to eat. That takes time, obviously, but we're going to have to eat either way. It's not like we're going to get the robots to eat for us, but we cook, which takes time. We clean, which takes time. Self-driving and humanoid robots are both forms of automation that allow us to just not have to worry about doing all the things that take up time that we really don't need to be doing, Again, we are not on this planet to work. We're on this planet to grow and thrive. The problem is we're in a society today that doesn't allow for that. Not at all. So as for the WeRobot event, so there are a lot of cool things that they announced. So I want to get into that now, because they had the Cybercab, they had the Robovan, they have the Optimus bots just walking around. They also unveiled a couple of things. So let's get into it. So first of all, the Cybercab. Now the Cybercab is a two-seater with no steering wheel, no pedals, no steering wheel, nothing. It's just I don't think it was even that. From what I saw and from what people are saying, it's not a massive car either. Like the footprint for it isn't very big. So you can see how this would fit well into just the roads and everything. It, doesn't take up much room. So the general experience people had from it was just, they loved it. Even people that were typically against this kind of technology, they seem to be like, it's really smooth. I saw someone from Top Gear saying how he was like, oh, this is really smooth. I feel comfortable, even though they're only going, 15, 20 miles an hour, right, at most. He felt comfortable in it, right? And this is what people are starting to realize, is that we've automated so much of the world already, right? As I said before, lifts are automated. So many things are automated nowadays, and we don't even kind of acknowledge that it's that way. Do you know what I mean? We become accustomed to it. We become comfortable with it. So I don't understand why people have such problems accepting this tech as well. It's just another form of automation. Yes, it's slightly scary because the roads can be dangerous, like very, very dangerous, but everything can be dangerous. The only reason the roads are dangerous at the moment is because people can't drive. They get tired. People get tired and all this. We'll go into the benefits of self-driving in a bit, but it's just a much better solution than just having a bunch of people that aren't even that good drivers on the road, risking their own lives and everyone else's lives every single day, right? Every single day. So Cybercab is going to be huge. And especially if you think you'll be able to buy it as well, so you'll be able to own one of these, it's pretty interesting. The Cybercab is set for production in 2026, and they said it would cost around 30k, which is not too bad. 30k is not too bad of a price. I think that's actually achievable. But they also unveiled the Robovan, which can hold up to 20 people. You know, it looks interesting. I think it looks much better than most public transit. Like in terms of the buses from the UK, I'd much prefer to see one of these Robovans driving around than a bus. Obviously, a bus can fit quite a few people, you know, like 40, 50 people maybe. But when do you ever really get a full bus? You know, a lot of the time you don't. So you can just have a couple of these going around and it'll be crazy good, man. It's going to be so much more efficient and I think it looks pretty cool. But I don't think that's set for production for a little while. So we probably won't see that for a bit. However, it was really cool seeing it unveiled. It was a very cool experience. So then we have the Optimus humanoid robots, which were just walking around, serving people drinks, you know. They were all dancing. They were talking to people, playing games. And I think the important thing to note here is that they were teleoperated. This isn't confirmed. Like, I don't know if they were, but I think it's pretty obvious. You know, most likely we had people controlling them from a distance. However, many people will see that and be like, oh, Elon's not, you know, he's lying again, blah, blah, blah. Dude, he's showcasing the hardware and the capabilities of the hardware, you know, the degrees of freedom we have on the hands, how they can actually serve people drinks and how they can do all these things. They're playing games, you know. They're doing so many things. And even if they're not AI operated at the moment, right, which they're training it, so, you know, it is technically, but in this event specifically, it's not, right? I assume anyway. I might actually be wrong. So, you know, they might come out and say it wasn't teleoperated. But even assuming that it was, I still think it's an incredible feat. Like, that is insane to do, like, to create something that can do all that. We see it already, you know, Figure 02's doing it and everything like this, but that doesn't discredit that Tesla is also doing it, and they're doing it very well, right? What they've achieved is incredible. People need to really just take a step back and be like, okay, how is this going to look in the future? Not what does it look like now? How is this going to look in the future? How is this going to play a role in our lives, right? This is a very important thing. Optimus bot, and he even said it himself, is one of the biggest inventions. He said it is the biggest invention ever, right? And I kind of agree. Personally, I think AI is bigger, and this is a form of AI, right? But AI as a whole, I think, is bigger. But Optimus and the humanoid robots, like I said, they're pretty much, they are AI, you know? They're just manifested into real life in a physical form. So this is crazy. This is crazy. I think people really need to understand how big of a creation this is. As well, though, they announced inductive charging, which is incredible. Oh, man. So I've actually been following this for a little bit. I remember Sweden had a motorway that had inductive charging, and it was pretty impressive. You know, I don't know how often it's used. If it is used, I haven't really followed it, but I remember when it was originally spoken about. And it's exactly as you think. While you're on the surface, you know, it could be whether you're parked up or whether you're driving, your vehicle's charging wirelessly, right? Crazy good feature. I'm wondering when we're going to get wireless chargers that are actually wireless and they can do it from a range, you know, to where we like enter a room and they have this device maybe on the ceiling or something, and it can charge your phone or any device in the area just wirelessly, not actually wirelessly, you know, where we don't have to put it down on a device. Either way, I don't know when we're going to get that. I've seen some prototypes of I think Xiaomi might have done it. I can't remember who did it, but it was very slow and not ready yet. But again, early stages of these kind of technologies are going to be bad. They're going to be bad, but it's the fact, it's the concept. It's the fact we can even make it to begin with, which, yeah, I think it's going to be huge. Inductive charging for that is very interesting, and I love that they announced that. Very big. Yeah, and one of the other final big highlights as well was that they announced unsupervised full self-driving for the current cars, you know, like the Model 3, Model Y in Texas and California by 2025, or sometime in 2025. I assume the later half. And as Elon Musk said, think of these as mobile lounges. Rather than cars, you know, they're more of just portable rooms, right? Where you can just chill, you can relax, you can work, you can go on your phone. I remember I was watching the Top Gear coverage, and he was just like, oh, but really, people are just going to scroll on their phones. I'm like, if people want to scroll on their phone, they can scroll on their phones, but like, you know, you can use your time productively. Please try to use your time productively. Don't just scroll on your phone. It's pointless, unless you're doing it for a reason. But yeah, so the implications of Robotaxi. Now, Robotaxi is going to kill Uber. It's going to kill normal taxis, and Waymo doesn't have a chance of keeping up either. So a lot of people are saying, oh, Waymo's doing better. Waymo's ahead of Tesla. No, they're not. Waymo, I mean, currently and technically they are, but if you actually think about what they're doing, they're not ahead of Tesla at all, because they're not positioned for this to work a long time. With Waymo, you have to geomap the entire location before you can then send them out reliably, right? With Tesla, you're training an AI model using cameras, using computer vision, so that you can learn and adapt to the environment and the surroundings and anything that, happens, right? So Teslas can go anywhere. It's a generalized approach, whereas Waymo is localized. You can only have it in specific areas. Plus, Waymo is extremely expensive. Extremely, extremely expensive. The LiDAR systems are, I don't even know, I think like tens of thousands or something like this. They're incredible. They're an insane amount of money. And people don't really seem to understand that this factors into their eligibility to be viable in the future, right? So Waymo and pretty much every other company that's tried to do self-driving has gone down the LiDAR route, and it's just not going to work. Like, it's straight up not going to work in the long run anyway, because Tesla's just going to overtake them rapidly, and it's going to be so much more ubiquitous. It's crazy. But yeah, so as I said, so for Uber, the average price per mile is £1.80. Out of this, £1.29 goes to the driver. £1.29. If you think you remove the driver, 50p per mile, that is going to reduce the cost of these taxi services drastically. I mean, they even predicted it will go down 2 to 5 times, and I'm more bullish about this. I assume it's going to be 5 times, potentially more in the grand scheme of things, potentially even more, right? Because you think again, EVs are cheaper to run. Not only do you not have to pay the driver, but they're also cheaper to run. So you don't have to fill up on these petrol. I think obviously a lot of Uber drivers right now, they use hybrid cars or electric cars. So they kind of have that benefit anyway. They have the option to do that. But in terms of self-driving, where you can get rid of the driver, massive implications for that. So I don't really see a future of Uber or any taxi service, including Waymo. I don't see them succeeding. They won't be able to. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. As well as this, every single Tesla that is on the road that people own today that has full self-driving capabilities will be able to join this fleet of robotaxis. Basically, if you own a vehicle, or if you own a Tesla, you can set this out, Out of 168 hours in the week, only 10 of them on average is spent driving. So 158 hours of just your car doing nothing, right? So let's say 50 of those hours you send it out, just picking people up, doing the rounds, earning you passive income. Why would you not want that? Why would you not want that? And you could own many of these. I think he even said, for the amount of money you'll be earning each month from this, potentially, depending on how you do it, if you were to play your cards right, you could finance it for less money than you're making each month. So you're just making profit straight off the bat. And if you bought multiple of these, even better. Like, not only is this huge for Tesla, but this is also huge for everybody involved. All the Tesla owners. I'm sorry, Uber. I'm sorry, Waymo. Like, you're gonna phase out, because this is just, there's no way you're not gonna phase out after this, right? There's no solution that anybody is currently doing that is better than Tesla's. So let's get into why self-driving is better, because I don't think it really needs to be explained, but I know a lot of people don't like the idea of self-driving because they like having the control. And I can understand it, driving is quite fun, but I don't think people realize that it's very dangerous and it's just not very well done by humans. We get so many crashes every single day, every single hour. There are so many crashes that just happen because people are too tired, they fall asleep at the wheel, or they're drunk, they're hungover. All these things where people just get distracted by their phones because everyone's on their phones nowadays, Like, there's so many ways that human driving can go wrong that robots just completely fix. Robots don't feel tired. Robots don't get distracted, right? They can see 360-degree vision because of all these cameras. It's incredible how much they could do, In 2022, I saw a study that said that, and this was 2022, bearing in mind, almost 3 years ago now, right? Teslas were already safer to use, 7 times safer than non-assisted cars. And that was 2022. Since then, it's gotten a lot better. Like, the last few updates, I remember, I've seen the videos, and the last few updates have improved it drastically. So already it's improved a lot since then. And this is understandable because it has the data of millions and millions of miles driven. No single human can get the amount of data that this combined AI system has got, right? It doesn't matter how many, you could literally spend the rest of your life driving and you're never going to catch up to the amount of information, the amount of data that's been collected by these self-driving, by these AI systems, right? You just won't be able to catch up. So all of these scenarios it's encountered, it will know how to perform, how to act, how to react better than a human. And like I said, 360-degree vision, extremely fast decision making. As well as this, it frees up our time and energy, so we can spend time working on projects that are actually meaningful to us, entertainment, or just sleeping, of course, napping, catching up on sleep. That's going to be important, I think, especially, as we transition into a world where automation is more of a thing. I think this will probably solve itself anyway. But at the moment, the society we live in, we desperately lack sleep, or we lack free time. We have to trade one for the other, So if we have free time in the evening, or we get a good night's rest, and then we wake up early so that we can go to work. But with this, we could get to the point where we just have the time back. That hour in the morning spent traveling is now an hour you can spend sleeping, catching up on rest, or working, catching up on work, anything like this. And of course, yes, driving can be very stressful, and it can affect people's actual decision making in the moment very badly. We can get road rage, that's a very, very common thing. Road rage is huge, constant fights and stuff like this because people are cutting each other off or they're just making bad decisions. All of these things can be solved by AI that won't do these things because they don't have the same emotions that we have. They don't have the energy drain that we have. They don't have all these problems that make driving so dangerous in the first place. So it increases safety, it frees up our time, and it's more accessible. Without a steering wheel, we may reach a point where we don't actually need to own a license to buy the vehicle. If we get to that point, then anybody could buy one of these and just use it as transport. No need to go on the bus, no need to go on the train, right? You just buy a Tesla, or rather than buying a Tesla, you just hire one of these Robotaxis to pick you up and take you places. Because I imagine once the infrastructure is being built around it, it's going to be a lot more accessible. Just in general, there's going to be a lot of these around, always ready to pick people up. Hopefully, anyway. Ideally, this is the future we're going to, where it's more accepted and people are actually, advocating for it, rather than all the hate Tesla gets at the moment. That it's just kind of, I don't know. It's not the hate Tesla gets at the moment isn't warranted. I really don't believe it's warranted, because time and time again, they prove that they can do what they say. It just takes longer than they say, and I think Elon Musk should maybe just give longer time predictions so that he can actually, for once, get a prediction early. And then that will be like, oh, he said it was going to be 2027 and he did it in 2026. Wow, that's crazy, rather than doing the earliest possible prediction he can think of just to get the hype going. I can understand it, but again, I think the long-term benefits of people's mindset towards Tesla as a company, it'd probably change a bit more if he tried to predict a bit later and then achieve and, deliver a bit earlier. But he can do what he wants. If that's the route he wants to take, that's the route he can take. Yeah, so it will just be more accessible. It'll be cheaper. It'll be better. Now, people have this stigma that AI is going to take our jobs, and it is going to take our jobs, right? But why is it a stigma? Why do people think this is such a bad thing, right? We shouldn't have to work these jobs to begin with. The jobs we have aren't intrinsically valuable to us. The jobs we go into, we find a job that roughly aligns with what we're interested in, and that's based on the fact that we haven't even explored our interest to the degree we should, originally. So most people, they don't actually give themselves time to explore what actually interests them, If they do, it's very minute versions of it. It's very, you haven't done a deep dive into it. A lot of the time people just, they'll especially with short form media being so prevalent, they'll just scroll, see something they're interested in, maybe, go on a little deep dive, well, not even a deep dive, just a little dive into that, and then go back into short form and carry on. We don't give ourselves enough time to nurture our interests and what is actually valuable to us, right? So this kind of makes it harder for us to even know what we enjoy to begin with, to know what kind of work we want to go into. I remember I spent a lot of my time going from job to job, industry to industry, just trying to figure out what interests me, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Because this is the idea that they have at the moment, is that you join a job and then you work your way up the ladder, right? And you spend, I'm working with people that spent 45 years plus in this company. It's an incredible amount of time to spend doing something. But personally, I don't think it's something they've actually wanted to do. They just found, they were just like, all right, I need to make money. I need to survive. And in order to survive, I need to work a job. Even if it doesn't 100% interest me, I'm going to do it anyway. We're forced to work so that we can sustain a life that revolves around working. That is not the way we should be living. Humans aren't put on this planet to work. We are put on this planet to grow and thrive. I've said it countless times. I'm going to continue saying it because it's true. We aren't here to work. Currently, we are hamsters on a wheel. We think we're making progress in life, but all we're really doing is just helping somebody at the top of their company who is following their passion. Most company owners, like a large majority of business owners, they have followed their passion. They're entrepreneurs. They've gone out and actually invested their time, their money, their energy, all of these things into building the businesses that they have. A lot of them then delegate all of the work to other people and they just relax. Fair enough, do what you want to do, right? In an ideal world, they don't need to delegate it to people and make other people's lives worse. In an ideal world, they can delegate it to robots that do the work for them. In an ideal world, everybody could come up with cool ideas, right? Come up with things that interest them, come up with solutions to problems that they have or that they see in the world, and they could get machines to help them achieve their goal, right? At the moment, what we do is we get people to help us achieve our goal. But what we want to do is get robots to help us achieve our goal so that we don't have to rely on basically making someone else live a really mediocre life, to put it simply. Most people spend their lives working and then they finally get to retire and then they can kind of maybe go on holidays with the little amount of, pension that they've saved. That's not a way to live. You need to be able to experience everything just throughout your entire life. Everything you want to experience, you should be able to just go and do. Right, and I think this is the era that AI will take us into. They're in every way better at doing these jobs than a human. There is no world in which AI is not better at these than a human, right? It just makes more sense for AI to do them. Again, it isn't our job to work for somebody else. We're on this planet so that we can discover what is actually valuable to us, and we can discover what the world is about. We can discover what different people have created. I always get confused because I was talking to people in the comment section of the WeRobot tester event, right? And a lot of them were just saying that, well, I think one guy, I remember he was saying that, what would you do if we had all this spare time? Follow your passions and aspirations? All people do nowadays is scroll on their phone. And I'm like, first of all, they do that because the society we live in doesn't make following your dreams and passions sustainable, because you have to slave most of your time away to working someone else's dreams and passions. But second of all, yes, ideally, that is how humans live, right? We do follow our dreams and passions. Why would you not want to live that way? Why would you want to live in any way that you're not in control of, that you're not actually enjoying, right? People are like, oh, I'd get bored without work. Well, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't get bored without work. In today's society, maybe, right? If you get bored without work, that means you lack critical thought and you lack independence. You just need to be able to think, right? What is actually valuable to me? What do I want to do with my life? Rather than consuming. If you're consuming, right, great. Consume things that actually allow you to then work on a project or work on something that is meaningful. Don't just consume randomly because you're addicted to the dopamine, the instant dopamine hit that it gives you, It's too common nowadays. And I can fall into it occasionally. I'm not perfect in any means, but it's too much of an automatic response that people have to just go onto their phones and just scroll, right? This is not the way people live, and it's not the way people should live. Personally, I want full control so that I can spend time, working. I can work out, I can go to the gym more often. I'll have the energy. Actually have the energy to do it. Ideally, like the costs of goods and services goes down so much, because if you think about it, if manufacturing cost goes down because it's more efficient, it's more readily available, it's just better done by AI and these robots, then the cost of goods and services will also drop drastically, which just means we'll be able to experience more for less. Why would you not want that as well, right? This is all ideally, right? So ideally we do go into this, and this is a future that isn't like a utopia, we're still going to have problems. There's still going to be so many problems of mental health and all this, These don't disappear just because, AI has taken our jobs and we have all this free time. There's still going to be things we have to deal with, right? Still problems you have to deal with. But at least we have control over what those problems are and how much time we allocate to spending them, to spending dealing with them. Now, this may mean we need some form of UBI, right? Universal basic income, some form of income that just allows us to sustain a life. And this is already being tested in certain countries, like America's tested it. I think they did a few year long test, I think 3-year long test. They gave people £1,000 or $1,000 a month, and just they were seeing, how it would affect their lives. And generally speaking, everybody loved it. They still worked, but they just worked on things that were a bit more intrinsically valuable to them. Like I've said, they spent time with their family more often. They actually took the time to spend time with their family and just nurture those relationships. All right, okay, think about it this way. Work takes up 5 days a week, but it does more than that. It's not just the 40 hours a week you work, 9 to 5. So you have to get up. You don't just get up at 9 and then leave, you go home at 5, you teleport home. You wake up, let's say 7:30, right? You give yourself an hour and a half just to prepare for work, just to wake up, get your mind prepared, eat a meal. I skip meals in the morning, but I just can't be able to wake up. I do 7:30 till 4:30, so I have to wake up quite early because I've got an hour of traveling time, which is another thing. So you have to wake up early, you have to travel there. You then have to spend 8 to 9 hours working there, depending on if you get the lunch included in that. And then you spend an hour back. And at this point, you have 4 or 5 hours in the evening. That's filled up with cooking, cleaning, doing all these things I mentioned earlier that the humanoid robot the humanoid robot will replace. So all these things, they just take up too much of our time, and they're literally, we don't have control over whether we do them or not, right? You can't just go to your boss like, oh, I can't come into work today, I'm just not feeling it, because you'll get fired, or you just won't get paid, and then you won't be able to afford this. I don't understand how people think this is a sustainable way of living, because it just isn't. It's not a sustainable way of living, and this is a solution that is much more aligned with, I think, with what humans are meant to be doing with their lives, where we have free time, we have free energy, we have, all these resources that just allow us to choose how we want to live our life, and we're not shepherded into a way that we don't actually want to do. Like I said, at best, we find a job that roughly aligns with what we want to do, but it's never truly what we want to do. Like 99.9% of the time, it isn't. Maybe, 0.1% of those people, where they find something that this is their passion, this is their dream, this is what they wanted to do their whole lives, right? And great, I'm happy for those people. But the vast majority of people aren't in that bucket. So to overcome fears, we have to look at the common concerns that we have. Now, trusting robots with our lives is a big ask. I understand this, right? But we trust machines with our lives every single day. Automation has been a part of our lives for a long, long time. We have autopilot systems in planes, we have trains, lifts, all of these things that are designed to increase safety, not lower it. And we trust them with our lives every single day without even thinking about it. People often say that not having any purpose with everything being automated is going to be an issue, right? And I do think that a lot of people will struggle to find this purpose, because we do live in a society where, we don't have to worry about finding our purpose, where we can just kind of get along with a normal mediocre job that gives us mediocre pay. But with the boring work automated, it does give us that time to just focus on our creativity, focus on what is actually valuable to us as humans, as individuals. Wall-E has this idea that it's going to make everyone lazy. It's going to coax us into this thing where everyone's just brain rotting and just they can't think for themselves. They don't even know who they are. We become fat messes that just get moved around automatically. Everything is automated, blah blah blah, right? It's a very typical narrative for these kind of sci-fi movies to have. It's just negative, all negative, because you have to have negativity in a narrative to make it interesting to people. However, automation is not about making us lazy. It's about optimizing our time. Rather than having to commute or do all these chores or do any of these things that we don't want to be spending time doing, we can actually be productive and focus on working smarter, not harder. And of course, the AI takeover. AI is going to take over in some way, shape, or form, but it's an idea that's been blown out of proportion by media. As I said, most narratives around the future are negative. So then when we ask the average person, what do you think the future is going to be like? All they think about are negative thoughts, this isn't going to work. They get presented with something that is actually feasible, and they're like, no, this isn't going to work. This won't work. This is not going to be sustainable. They'll find any reason they can to dismiss it, while at the same time complaining about how society needs to change. So when presented with options, right, presented with ways in which society can change for the better, right, they deny it. They dismiss it as if it's not going to work. And I really don't understand this, man. Just try to have some critical thought behind this. Try to think about the implications that this will have. If you think it's going to make us lazy, you let yourself be lazy. Personally, I like to spend my time working on myself and bettering myself. I know many other people do as well. It just takes time and dedication, discipline, commitment. These are all things we can do. It's hard in society nowadays because we have to spend most of our mental energy and most of our time doing something we don't want to do. So then when we come to do, when we come home in the evenings or whatever, or at night, depending on when you finish and when you get home, we don't have the energy, we don't have the time. As I've said, I keep saying this countless times, but it needs to be drilled into people because they don't seem to grasp the concept that in society today, no, we are not able to do these things sustainably. But in a future where everything is automated, it will be so much easier to do. I think people really need to get this into their heads because it's going to create a bright future. We may enter a society where work is no longer necessary and the cost of commodities and services goes down a lot. Currently, it's hard for people to grasp how this would even work, but it is possible. Again, we aren't on this planet to work jobs that aren't meaningful to us. We're here to experience life and grow as individuals. In a world of automation, we will be able to innovate and create at incredible speeds. I think this is actually an underrated point because we're used to the progression, the rate of progression we currently have. But when everything is automated and everything is done much more efficiently, we're going to see an exponential increase in just productivity and manufacturing, and just everything that we have today is going to advance at a much faster rate. And that is saying a lot because it's already advancing at an incredibly fast rate. So when this technology does start rolling out, we see it implemented more in technology into society than it already is, then yes, this is going to be absolutely incredible and absolutely huge, and there's no way it can be ignored. People will be able to leverage AI and robots to create anything they can think of, and eventually we could enter an era where money becomes irrelevant. There's so much potential for good, so let's focus on that rather than only the negatives. It's important to look at the negatives. It's important to look at the problems. But if we're just focusing on that and not focusing on the potential, the solutions, we're not going to get anywhere. We will stagnate as a society. It's not a sustainable way of living. And that is not a future I want to go down. Yes, it is scary. Change is scary. But these are the kind of things we have to do in order to have a better future, a brighter future. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you want to check out more about just how technology is impacting the world, feel free to check out one of my other videos where I cover how we're entering a new era of gaming, because that is also very incredible and AI is playing a big role in that. But otherwise, until next time, thanks for watching.